It's John Black, Super Chemist. This video series is called The Deep State. I'm not sure what part, I think part 7 or something like that, who knows. I left off on the last, and I want you to realize you should watch part 1 and part 2, which no one has done. Showing where I show, I go on the internet and I have my camera and I show you how these, every president pretty much and vice president has been related to George Bush. And they all go back to Samuel Hinckley, which goes back to England, all the way back to 1300 to King Edward I. They're all related to him. They're all related. Anyways, and a lot of actresses and celebrities and Robert E. Lee. They're all related to Bush family, everyone. Obama, they're all related to. Anyways, all these people are related. The only people who are not related in this story are JFK, Reagan, and J. Edgar Hoover. And who was J. Edgar Hoover? He was the FBI director. He was a lifelong friend of Lyndon B. Johnson, a relative of George Bush. They were actually literally next door neighbors. Their yards touched each other for decades. Okay, I think they were lovers. Okay, myself, or sex partners, one or the other. And so let's get on with our story. Okay. First of all, JFK. No one was going to beat JFK. JFK and RFK both hated Lyndon B. Johnson because he was very, very racist, and because he did something. Lyndon B. Johnson did something to JFK's dad or something, or one of his relatives or something. But they had a very big hate for Lyndon B. Johnson. How did he become their VP then? How did he become their vice president? J. Edgar Hoover, Lyndon B. Johnson's best friend and maybe lover. Yeah, he blackmailed JFK, right? Because JFK was always womanizing, and J. Edgar Hoover had a whole bunch of pictures and audio and video of him screwing around on his wife. And back then that was a bad thing, like really bad. So here goes the story, right? Oswald kills. First of all, they blackmailed JFK to get Lyndon B. Johnson to be the VP. Then JFK gets elected. Oswald kills JFK. Remember, everyone's related. Oswald killed JFK. Lyndon B. Johnson now goes. He blackmailed his way into vice presidency. Now he's the president. And what does he do? He makes the Warren Commission to investigate how his relative killed JFK and how he blackmailed his way into being vice president and presidency. Who's on the Warren Commission? Oh, his relative, Gerald Ford, which will soon become president. Yeah, so he got his relative to investigate himself. J. Edgar Hoover was also investigating the JFK assassination, and days before Edgar Hoover testified in front of the Warren Commission that was run by who? Gerald Ford. Days before that, just like I'm talking like 2 or 3 days, man. Lyndon B. Johnson announced that the FBI director, J. Edgar Hoover, now has a lifetime position as the director of the FBI. Then 2 days later, he testifies in front of the Warren Commission that his relative is on, Gerald Ford, right? And they all say, no, nothing fishy is going on here. It was just a crazy guy who, got a lucky shot in and got JFK. No conspiracy. Okay, then Nixon happens, right? Nixon becomes president next, and Ford at this time, he's only remember he was on the Warren Commission, right? He's only a Speaker of the House right now, okay? But what happens? First, Agnew, the vice president, gets impeached. So Ford moves up into the vice president position, even though he got no votes. Then what happened? Nixon gets convicted or impeached or resigns or whatever you want to call it. And Ford now moves from vice president, where he got no votes, into presidency, where he got no votes. Now he's the president of the United States. And who does he bring with him? Nelson Rockefeller, another elite mafia family. Nelson Rockefeller. He's the vice president, right? And then what do? They make a commission, just like the Warren Commission, called the Rockefeller Commission. Who do they put in charge of it? Well, not another Bush relative, a Rockefeller. They put Nelson Rockefeller, the vice president, to be head up that commission. And they're supposed to look at the CIA and Nixon and JFK, and they looked into it and said nothing fishy to see here. Now, they're all related, keep in mind, except JFK, all right? And guess what else? Guess who else, right? Gerald Ford makes Rockefeller vice president, then makes the Rockefeller Commission, puts Rockefeller in charge of it. They're all related. But he also puts another relative, George H.W. Bush. He makes him director of the CIA. And why? Because they want to make sure nothing fishy's going on at the CIA. Look into the JFK thing, look into the Nixon thing. And they're all related. Then, what happens? Now, the guy who's the director of CIA, now he's a vice president of the United States. Reagan is president. And then John Hinckley, keep in mind he's related, they're all related, shoots at Ronald Reagan. Well, George H.W. Bush is vice president, which means if he would have succeeded, Bush would have went in to be the president. Okay? Now, I don't know who investigated the Reagan shooting, but I can guarantee you it was a Bush or Rockefeller, relative. Okay, but I do know 9/11. During when the planes were flying into the Trade Center, at that same exact second, Bin Laden's brother was having lunch. I think at the White House. Wherever he was at, I think it was the White House. There's logs. It's proven. His brother was supposedly driving planes into the World Trade Center. The Bin Ladens and the Bushes have been family friends for generations. Generations. But yeah, who investigated 9/11? Yeah. Bush family members, and they even complained about it, saying, how are you having Bush family members investigate this thing when we think you're involved in it some way? But Bush was like, yeah, what are you going to do about it? I'm royalty. Can't touch me, son. But anyways, another thing I wanted to bring up here is that, the Rockefellers, they do have different families. Like the Rockefellers, I didn't look into them past J.D. Rockefeller. For all I know, they're related to kings and queens too, and they're related to Bushes. I don't know, but either way, by now they've married and with Bushes had kids and grandkids, and them kids and grandkids had went out and married and whatever. So that's what they do. See, back in the day when you had monarchies, they were inbred. They didn't want to mingle their blood with commoners. So they either had sex with their family members or royalty from another country. Now, though, there's no more royalties in other countries, really. You know what I mean? Now, the royalty is the actual royals, like the Bush family, who have ancestors back to King Edward I. And you have self-made elite mafia families, like the Rockefellers. And so, or like the Rothschilds. And see, the Rothschilds, they're from Germany. They're probably, their ancestors are from royalty from Germany. You know what I mean? And that's how so the Rockefellers, by now, they're related to the Bushes by many, many, many different ways. By marriages and this and that. So I wanted to bring that up too. That all these factions Morgans, the whatever Childs, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. They're all actually related at this point. You know what I mean? Because they don't want to intermingle with our own common blood. You know what I mean? They don't want our nasty, dirty blood to mingle with them. But they can't. They can only inbred so much. You know what I mean? They have to have either another royalty, or sometimes they have to have commoners. You know, just because you got to do it, man. My other thing is, when can you say it's beyond coincidence? Okay, now you got the presidents all the way back to George Washington. They're all related, man. Then you got these things with the assassinations, where all the commissions are run by the same Bushes, and the royals. And everyone involved. Even the people, even the assassins are related, are royal. You know what I mean? Everyone is. How much coincidence can you have before you're like, hey man, maybe they do know each other. Maybe it's not just that they're ninth cousins and they don't know each other. Maybe they do know each other. Maybe they are coordinated, with each other. I'm just saying, could be, It sure looks like it. I know that. That's for sure. Okay. Let's see what else. Now, do I think all these Bush relatives know each other? And I was just bringing it up. No, they do not know. I don't think they know each other. Like what I think it is the first rules that came over, like Samuel Hinckley and those people, like George Washington came over about the same time. So did Thomas Jefferson, and so did James Madison, I think, came later. But anyways, I think those royals that first came over, they were together. Because they're all royals, man. They're going to stick together. They're going to know their genealogy. I think that they came over, and then they keep track. Just these main people that, you know what I mean? They keep track of their family line, and if they see anyone that's crazy that they can use, like Oswald, Harvey Lee Oswald, or like John Hinckley, they'll take them and use them. You know what I mean? And if they see someone that's that's related to them, in their family tree, that is, like a Bill Clinton or something like that has a good speaking, and he's very personable, and he's going into politics, and he has the, what I mean, where they know that they can take him and they can mold him and make him president, or take him through up the ranks. And then once they get up so high, they're brought into some of the plan. They're finally told, hey man, I think what it is what they blackmail them. They try to corrupt them. If they won't corrupt, they'll try to blackmail them. And if they can't do any of that, maybe they move on to the next relative that has potential. But once they have them owned and they start getting them through the thingies, because the more and more they get owned, the more and more it's hard to back out of it. You know what I mean? If you pull into it slowly by slowly, you know what I mean? At first it's like, well, yeah, they're a little crooked or whatever. They're gonna fix this for me so I can get elected. And then a little bit later it gets worse, and a little bit later it gets worse, and a little bit later you're like, man, these people are freaking nuts. But at that time you realize how big they are, how strong they are, how much power they have. Now you can't back out. First of all, you've already done so much stuff. You don't want to get caught, right? By the time you know how evil they are. And the other thing is you're going to know how powerful they are. How they own everything, and they know, they are in everything, like the Italian mafia, except worse, right? I want you to think, this hasn't, I thought the deep state started, like about the CIA, maybe, what I mean, that kind of thing. I thought it was a little before that, just, it really didn't get big. No. The country started out being a deep state with George Washington and all his little buddies there that he was related to, John Adams and, James Madison and Jefferson, all of them.